Hello, and welcome to Veronica's Voice, the podcast for cycle breakers and legacy makers, where we keep it real, raw, and authentic.
What came up for me is four things. um, so the first, so the first two are more around mindset and things like that, and then the third one's like a practical approach, and then the fourth one is like pretty meta, pretty out there, high level. I mean, so literally out there, I guess. Okay, so the first thing is that, in my experience, shifting your energy around a particular person or a particular situation is a lot easier and more successful, I guess, or more effective, more likely to be effective if the person already has a practice in place of mindfulness and presence, and train their nervous system and all those kinds of things. I actually don't even like the phrase "train your nervous system." It's kind of like the popular phrase right now for all of these all of these things that we do that are good for us. So, one of the things I start with my clients is a daily practice of some kind of breathing, and the type of breathing can vary depending on their experience. But if they're brand new to deep breathing, I recommend just doing a diaphragmatic breath, like 3 breaths, 3 times a day. Really quick, really simple. There's also a 21 breath practice I recommend, where you literally just breathe 21 times and count your breath. And that process allows people to come into presence. And then I do a practice of presence, which is kind of what it sounds like, although again, there's different depths of it. But you just practice like being really deeply present in the moment for like 5 minutes a day. So all 3 of those exercises combined is like 10 minutes. It's not a lot. It's how actually my morning practices have changed, but it's how I started my morning practice, my mornings for probably 3 years or something. So that's the first thing. I find that it results in calm and presence pretty quickly, but it also depends on some people on this phone call may be like, that's not true, Veronica. It took me a long time before I came to presence. I don't know, but the thing about breathing and mindfulness practices is there is an immediate effect, right? And then there's also a long-term effect when you do it consistently. Then in terms of like practical steps, the second one is practical strategy and also long-term, which is, what is the person's emotional response to the situation, either to speaking in this case, speaking with the daughter or speaking with the wife, the stepmom. Is there an emotional response? In other words, a trigger, right? And if there is, like, oh my God, I hate the stepmom, and she's isolating my daughter, and she, just all the emotion around it, to really pause and look at what is behind that emotion. And again, this can sometimes be a complex process. A lot of times we can't see our own, what's underneath our own triggers, right? It's like, no, I'm upset because this person is doing something that's wrong, right? Which is true. And also the reason the response is so deep is because it's probably connected to something else. Perhaps the person was wronged, by their parent in the similar way, and it's bringing up all of that hurt from the past. So that's the second thing, because when you're going into these conversations, so into these situations, having a conversation with the ex, having a conversation with the daughter, if you are emotionally charged, everyone picks up on that, whether they know it or not. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time it's subconscious, right? But if you're full of anger or hatred or blame and resentment and all those things, it really doesn't matter what words you use or what strategies you implement. those words and strategies are only going to be partially effective. They'll still be a little bit effective, but they'll only be partially effective if you have all this charge, right? Those two things, in my opinion, are really important. So then the third piece of shifting your energetics is to always bring the focus back to the child and or yourself. So here's what I mean. If what's happening in the person's mind, so let's just say, for example, damn, I'm so mad that they're preventing me from taking my daughter to Germany. This person is so, manipulative and so whatever. If those are the thoughts that are going through the mind, then you want to notice that and be like, oh, I'm thinking about the ex, or I'm thinking about the stepmom. Okay, let me bring the attention back to myself. Why am I so angry? Okay, so if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so angry at this person for acting this way and doing these things, right? Likely, you already know who that person is. It's likely that the stepmom is acting exactly the way she's always acted, right? So turning the story to myself, with my ex, right? He would do things and I'd get so angry, and then I'm like, oh, yes, I'm angry because he's doing something wrong. And also, he is acting 100% the way he's acted all the time I've known him, right? So it's like you're beating your head against a brick wall, and then you're angry at the wall for being a brick wall. And it's like, well, stop beating your head against it, right? And I recognize it's not as simple, and that's why the first two things that I mentioned are so important, right? So I would, recognize, why am I upset? Like, he's acting exactly the way he's always acted, right? And he's projecting, and he's and there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to change his actions or his thoughts or his projections, right? So the only thing I have control of is myself and how I respond and how I react. So, okay, let's bring the focus back, bring the focus back on myself. Why am I so angry, or why am I so whatever? Okay. What do I want the outcome to be? I want the outcome for my daughter to go to Germany. Okay, but on a bigger level, why is that important? I want my daughter to have a close relationship with her grandparents. I want to have time with my daughter. Okay, that's awesome. How can I continue doing that outside of the ex or outside of the stepmom, right? So focus on what's important. Focus on the outcome. And, the question was, how do you shift the energetic? So it is just pattern interrupt. It's constant. You're reprogramming your system to do something different, right? So what's always happened in the past is emotional response or anger or whatever, right? Frustration, overwhelm, feeling like hopelessness, right? So it may not be anger. It may be more on the hopelessness spectrum, right? Okay, what do I want? Right. So using an example again from me and my son, right? I could have been like, and I was, right. I could dad's alienating him from me. Okay, well, if I believe that and if I focus on that, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to act in a way that's charged when I interact with my son. He's probably going to pull away even more, and now my belief has become true because I've allowed it to happen. I don't know if that makes sense. So instead, every time I think about, why is my son not reaching out to me? I switch it back to, what do I want? I want to be a present mother. I choose to be a present mother. I can't force my son to have a response to that. But I'm like, it's important to me to be a present mother. Okay, how do I do that? I do that by calling him even when he doesn't respond. I do that by showing up for things even if it seems like he doesn't want me there, right? And so as soon as I started doing that, all of a sudden, James became irrelevant. Whether or not James is alienating him or not is completely irrelevant. it's actually kind of fun when you really get into it, because now I've made James irrelevant. And how cool, like, I'm smiling just saying it. He's just like this, like, baboon, like, jumping around, or gorilla pounding his chest over there. And I'm over here like, well, what is that all about? I'm just having a relationship with my son. Like, their antics become kind of funny when they no longer have an effect on you. So that's the aspect of switching the energetics that can be done, at any time, even while you're working through the first two steps, right? Is just constantly bring the notice. It's just awareness, not just, it's awareness, right? Okay, I'm noticing when my focus is on the ex or on the stepmom, and I'm bringing the attention back to either myself and or my child and or the outcome that I want. Because you can influence the outcome hugely. And by focusing on that positive outcome, it's just switching your attention. By focusing on the positive outcome, you are likely to create it or to strongly influence a positive outcome. It may not be exactly what you wanted, right? It may not be the trip to Germany, but maybe it's, regular Zoom calls with the grandparents. Maybe it, right? Finding ways to create the outcome that you're looking for, the higher outcome that you're looking for. Okay, and so then last thought on this is the super high level, which is, if you really look, so I have come to look at narcissistic abuse, narcissistic trauma, as like part of my spiritual path. And I know there's a lot of people in the community who see it that way also. So I believe that, we are here on earth. I know that we are energetic beings, so that's not so much a belief as a knowing, right? We're energetic beings, and there's so much about that we, as human beings, don't really understand. I believe that we are here on this earth to evolve. And whatever this energy is that we are, that's in our bodies, that's on this earth, there's some greater purpose to it evolving, which, whatever. It's not important to me to understand that. People have different theories or beliefs around that. But, and I believe that we, each of us comes to this earth in each incarnation to learn something. And some people go as far as to say that we have made contracts with other people to support us in those lessons. So there is no way that I would be where I am now in terms of the healing work I do, the teachings that I do, and my own personal self-awareness and all those things. There's no way that I would be here, in my opinion, without the narcissistic trauma I experienced, both in my childhood and then especially from James. When I took a moment to really think about, like, let's pretend it's true that we made contracts ahead of time. And I get chills even when I say this. So James made a contract to be the fucking narcissistic asshole that he is. Right? So first of all, let me back up a minute. I also believe that being a narcissist or one of these maladaptive personalities is very difficult for them. It must suck to be inside James's head. And I know that to be true just because he suffers from severe just depression and so low self-worth, and he self-medicates, right, with pot and alcohol. Like, his existence is pretty miserable. And I can only imagine that inside his head, it's even more miserable. So I have compassion on a high level, not on like a day-to-day implementation level, but on a high level, I have compassion for these personality types because I think it must suck to be inside their heads. So now if I also then believe that his soul agreed to live the life of a narcissist, the painful life of a narcissist, in order to help my soul evolve, like, holy fuck. Like, that is such an incredible gift, right? And even on the 3D realm, even on the 3D realm, I can say my experience with James allowed me to evolve into who I am today, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for who I am today. I may not be grateful to him. I don't feel gratitude towards him in this physical plane. I don't. But I do feel grateful for who I am and in the process that I went to get here. And then if I elevate it into the spiritual realm, I am like blown away by even the concept that a soul may have agreed to come here to live a miserable existence so that my soul could evolve. And that, I think I've believed that for many years, but it really hit me on a deep level recently, like maybe 2 months ago. And like I still feel it when I say it out loud to you right now. Like I just get chills in my body, and I'm like overcome with appreciation and gratitude to his soul. And I switched my mindset to feel like James is my spiritual teacher, because every time he does something, like when he didn't allow Orlando to come for spring break, right? It triggered all these thoughts and responses in me. And then as I process through them, I elevate it again. And same thing with this, just everything I've kind of experienced this past month with like switching the energetics and seeing the results with my son. Right now, I've been teaching those switch in energetics for a while, but getting to experience it on an even deeper level, right? I'm like, wow, thank you, spiritual teacher. It's not so much thank you, James, because again, I don't feel gratitude to him in the 3D. But my spiritual self is like, thank you, spiritual teacher, for allowing me to evolve yet again into this deeper level. And now I'm getting to share this with other people, like you all, my clients, right, and my audience. And like I'm getting to, James is directly connected to the healing of all the people that I touch, that I get to touch. That's because of James. Like, that's kind of mind-blowing. So I'm sharing that, even though it's like a little out there, it's a lot out there, but I'm sharing it because that belief and that feeling in my system, when I stepped into that, the spiritual aspect of it, it doesn't really matter if I believe it, but when I just allowed myself to sit in it for a minute, I felt my whole system, the energy in my system shift. And like I haven't felt that energetic attachment with him for like years now, right? And yet, when I stepped into the spiritual aspect of it, I did, obviously there was some level of attachment, because I felt it release like even more, if that's possible. It's almost like, it went from, I don't know, a block of ice to, and then water, and then it turned into a cloud, so there's like this cloud that's like floating somewhere in my energetic connection with James, right? It's no longer this strong attachment that is just like, it's just like a shadow up there, and it's like that cloud now dissolved. That's what it felt like. And I could feel it, and I still feel it. It's like so clear and clean. So anyways, that's the last aspect of, the energetic stuff that, if you're able to start considering that possibility, like, wow, the stepmom is forcing the daughter to evolve. The stepmom is forcing me to evolve. The stepmom is creating an opportunity for my relationship with my daughter to strengthen, because I'm being forced to look at different communication strategies. I'm being forced to think about mindfulness and energetics, and it's going to create. The stepmom is actually creating a more beautiful relationship than would have otherwise happened. And so if you're able to like feel that, it's going to shift your energy, which is why I shared it here, even though I normally don't, because my belief is that a lot of people have a hard time hearing that, because there's so much, anger and hatred and pain and valid anger, from all the pain that's caused by the narcissist, that it's really difficult, I think, to or it takes, I'm going to say it's difficult, but I think it takes time and a certain level of healing to be at the place that you can be like, thank you for, being my spiritual teacher. Like, I think a lot of people would just be like, fuck you. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't normally share this part, but it did have such a profound effect on me that I'm sharing it in the event it's helpful. And if you think it's totally crazy, that's cool too. Take what serves and leave the rest.
Thank you for joining me on Veronika's Voice. If you took something away from today's episode, remember to like, share, and subscribe so others can benefit as well. See you next time.